Well, all right, guys, welcome. All right, guys, welcome to the Mad Maker Show, episode 14. And incidentally, this is the last episode of 2017. Insane. I know. It's over, almost over. We got a special guest tonight. We'll get to her in a little bit here. I do want to mention what we usually do for people coming in for the first time. And that is, so this is called the Mad Maker Show. So recently, probably within the last, I'd say 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, who knows, right? With the mixture of video and people that make things at home in their basements and garages and whatever closets, um, that has come together to create this community that we call the maker community. And that, not that I'm aware of, existed prior. So we're about interviewing people that create things and are very unique in what they create. And a lot of you guys that are viewing right now are those very same people. Some of you might have even been interviewed on this show already. But for those of you that don't know about this, it's the maker community, right? And we call the show the Mad Maker Show. And in fact, you can see down here, you see the madmakershow.com. If you visit that, that's our site. You'll see the previous interviews, and it helps us out when you do go visit that. So share that around if you can spare it. So the idea is mad. People that create, I find, in my opinion, my experience, that they're kind of off slightly to lesser or greater degrees compared to the rest of the population. And so that's why not mad like axe murderers. Well, maybe. That's a complete possibility. Some of these makers could be incredibly crazy and capable of horrific destruction. But barring that, for the most part, it's all good, right? So these people, this is what we do. This is the type of people that we interview, and it's a great community full of a lot of love and sharing and all the things that humans experience, right? So we have a great show tonight. Stick around for that. By the way, check out the links below. You'll see Harnealmedia, Makers Media Network. Investigate that stuff. That helps us out too. You'll see Jamie Page's links and Rebecca DeGroot's links as well as mine. Grab a t-shirt for the end of the year. And that's all I got to say. Jamie Page.
Hello. Yes, I am the Jamie Page. You can find all my stuff at on YouTube at JP Woodwork, Twitter and Instagram at JP_Woodwork, or you can go to my website, look for that logo at jp-woodwork.com. I am 1/5 of Makers International Podcast, which you can find at makersinternationalpodcast.com. All sponsored by Harnealmedia. And Harnealmedia, you can probably find him in the chat. And Harnealmedia over in the chat does have a name, which is Steve Nealon, so thank you very much, Steve. There's a couple of orders of business at the moment. David Jones from Portal Woodworks. He still has the bandsaw box challenge going on. Ends midnight 31st of December. So you've still got a few days to get your entries in. Some awesome prizes going on for that. There's some cash prizes going on there and a few t-shirts as well. And obviously, once again, I'm going to mention Cole Jacobson's Makerspace as well. There's a fundraiser going on for Cole for that. So I'll get you to put a link in the description for that if there's not one there already. So yeah, if you can spare a few dollars, I know it's time's a bit hard for everybody at the time, this time of the year. But yeah, so there's that there. So back to Eli.
All right, thank you, dude. And by the way, I want to say one thing. I appreciate very much that from the very first show I asked you, hey, JP, could you please, help and co-host? And in my mind at the time, I didn't expect that it would go, for so many episodes. And you've always been there, so I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I felt sorry for you.
Well, I'll take that. Why not? Right?
Piggy.
Well, that's good. Yeah, it's all good, man.
It's all good.
I don't mind.
That's what we do over at Harnealmedia. Help each other out.
So guys, today we have an incredible maker. I've been influenced by the projects and builds and creations that she makes. So much so that I went and recreated, or not. Forgive me, not even recreated, just re-envisioned in my way, trying to copy one of her works. We'll get to that later on, but we have Rebecca DeGroot here with us. If you haven't heard about her, you're going to find out more tonight. So Rebecca, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
So what we'll do is when we ask, the questions we do, I don't follow necessarily a strict guideline, and it might be sort of Quentin Tarantino movie style, back and forth throughout history and whatnot. So I guess the first thing that I want to ask is, where are you at now? Where do you hail from? Give us a brief history, concise, so we have a better grasp of you.
All right, well, now I'm pretty close to Houston, Texas. I moved down here from Michigan for a teaching job. So I've been teaching, this is my 4th year teaching art at a public high school in Houston. And I plan on continuing to teach, as difficult as it is sometimes. So I try to find time after school and on my breaks, and pretty much every chance I get to continue making stuff on my own time. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. I keep myself very busy, but I love it. Do you have
do you have a big family, small family? Give us a picture of that.
I grew up a family of 6. I have 3 brothers, 1 older and 2 younger, twin brothers. And my mom still lives in Michigan. My dad lives in Kentucky. My older brother's in Florida, and my 2 younger brothers are still in Michigan. I still keep in contact with my grandma on my mom's side. She's extremely supportive. Like I was saying before, she was the one that actually bought one of my pieces in the auction for the Make It Matter thing. So she'll be getting that sooner than later, I hope.
Awesome. So I have some other things to ask about, sort of where it all began, where your concept, but I don't want to touch on that now. I want to actually go straight to why your interest and passion and focus on, this is just the obvious question, arachnoid legs. Why? Could you give us some insight in that?
Well, it all started when I was in college. There was one piece, and it was a bit of a challenge, sort of. My challenge being, I was in an art class, or it was a functional art class, and I was the only functional art 4 student with a bunch of functional art 1 students, just because we couldn't fill the 4th level class. And I was frustrated the whole time that I had to be stuck with a bunch of functional art 1 students. And so every project that I did that semester was kind of a challenge to myself, just because I didn't feel like I was being challenged enough within the class. And it came to the last project of the year, and we were assigned to make something with a timbre. And if you don't know what that is, it's essentially the piece of a roll-top desk that rolls. It's several slats of wood that run in a track, and they move to either open or close, or just to move a section from one place to another. And so that's all we had to do, was make something with a timbre. And everybody else in the class was making these really simplified boxes. Some people made a light. Some other people did some other random things that I wasn't very impressed with. And, a lot of it was just the skill level, but there was just something pushing me to do more. And then on top of that, I was just getting back into turning, and I wanted to make something on the lathe before he assigned this project. And he's telling us about this timbre and how it works and how it's constructed and how to actually do it. And I'm sketching away already. He's not even done telling us what we're doing, and I've already got an idea in mind. But by the time we're done with the introduction to the project, I have something that looks like a cheeseburger on my paper, and it's just this weird alien thing. And it's the only way that I could really think of making something on the lathe, but that also included a timbre. So that was that piece, and it pushed me to go a little bit further, and the design wasn't quite there yet when I first started. And then the way that I had designed the timbre pieces, I wanted to make it look a little bit more lively or animalistic. And then I didn't just want it to leave it at the timbre pieces. I thought, well, maybe I can push this a little bit further into more animal-like or more creature-like without making it look too representative of anything specific. And so I gave it these little legs that I had cut out on the bandsaw, just out of a single piece of wood. And they hold up. I actually have it in my parlor. This piece is ridiculous. So it's got 80 pieces that move around this enclosed bowl. It stands on 4 chunky little ugly legs. And from that, I was asked to be part of the Furniture as Danger show. It was my first student exhibition. And then basically that point was just my jumping off point. Everything just took off. And from that one project where I wanted to make something just slightly more animalistic, the legs just ended up being my signature. So I just continued making more pieces that had legs and modifying the legs and changing things about them. And it's really been an evolution from the most basic way that I could think of making these little segmented angular legs to something that's now, I think, a little bit more refined, a little bit more thought out, and not just a piece to give the object another function, but to add to it more aesthetically and to really bring the whole piece together. And I don't know, I think that's how I started, and I think that's how I kind of came to be where I'm at now. And at this point, I really like them. I have a lot of fun with them, and it's just so much more enjoyable for me to design something that has sort of lifelike or animal-like or even plant-like qualities. I just have way more fun with it that way. I think it's a little bit boring for me if I make something that looks too static. So I think that's kind of how I got started with them, and then where it is now.
Yeah, it sort of that's pretty amazing, actually. It sort of becomes a thing where it's an organic, I mean, it's not just furniture, because I mean, you have desks and all sorts of things, and then you have these legs, and it's a very organic thing, but it's furniture. It's just incredible. Yeah, what can I say? The legs, how they connect in your smaller pieces. Mm-hmm. How do you, because if you guys have, I don't know, is it possible to have a piece that can be shown or no?
Yes, I have some here, actually. Okay, are you just wondering how they actually connect, or if I turn a piece, how do I figure out what it's going to look like turned and then modify it so that it will be that angular shape?
Yeah, like all those things answered.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you might be lucky. I've done this demonstration a couple times where I went up to Michigan a few months ago and did a wood turning retreat, and what they wanted me to do was teach people how to turn these legs. So I have this example. So you take a spindle and you turn it on the lathe with whatever shape you really want. I did a really simple spindle in this case. And then you cut each joint. My dogs are going crazy again. You cut each joint at an angle, you can see. And the farther over you tip the angle, the farther that the leg will be bent. And so after you have that angle cut, flip it. I've got these attached with Velcro, so it makes it really easy for me to reattach. And then you have this interesting angular leg thing. And so then after you have these angles positioned in the way that you want it basically figured out and finalized, what I like to do is, whether I've turned it or I've just cut it off on the bandsaw, I like to take a dovetail saw. I used to do it with a coping saw, so you can buy one for like $5 wherever. You can go to the pawn shop and get one for basically nothing. Take a coping saw or a dovetail saw now, and you just cut a groove right down the center of the joint. And let me see if I have another example. I know I do. I brought a bunch of things in here. And in that joint that's cut, you can put some sort of structure. And I just use veneer. And that veneer, as long as the grain runs perpendicular to the joint, it'll support it way better than if you didn't have anything else in there. And then you have this solid piece that basically has grain that runs all the way throughout the leg.
Amazing.
I just sand it down and finish it back up again. So yeah, it's pretty simple. It just looks a little bit more difficult than it actually is.
Well, the part of the power of it is the fact that it was envisioned and made into reality, right? Most of the processes that are used in woodworking, sure, you could say, like a scale of complication to simplicity, but in essence, I don't know who I was talking to. I think it was Javi's wood shop. Everything in woodworking is just about a box, right? It's a box and a box, except for this when it comes to wood turning, and even then possibly, but not in this case.
Yeah,
it's just a great design. Now, so when I came across your work in the group, I was really shocked in a good way, right? I was shocked because the idea of that organic creature-like with furniture, it made me think of surrealism, like incredibly. And it also made me think of you. Where had you studied, or were you influenced by, like, Dali? Did these influences occur to you? I had the notion that yes, in my mind, but I could be wrong. Can you tell us?
Yeah, honestly, well, I went to an art college in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I went to Kendall College of Art and Design, and I studied there for 6 years in art education and in sculpture and functional art. And while I was there, I had to take so many art history classes for the art education portion, and then even more for the sculpture and functional art. And when we got to surrealism, that was, I think, one of my favorite areas to study, just because it did focus on more of, well, surrealism in essence is the study and the sort of explanation of the dreamlike state, and how things that just don't make sense really come to life, and how you can incorporate them into art, and how you can sort of translate them in your own way. And I think that is kind of what I'm doing, in a sense, is like, nobody thinks of these things in a regular day. I mean, I do, just because my imagination is constantly running away with me. But when you're in that dreamlike state, you may think that something makes perfect sense, and everything is just so natural, and there's nothing really that confuses you until you wake up, and then you're like, well, what the heck was I talking about or thinking about? And that's kind of, I'm not doing it intentionally, but that ends up being what my work looks like in the end, is something that just doesn't make sense in the real world, something that you could only really think about from your subconscious. So I don't know that I'm doing it on purpose, but I do know that that is an influence and something that guides where I'm going with my work.
Well, good. So I had that notion, and at least that's sort of verified to a degree.
Yeah, and I love the style anyways. I love when I get to teach that style in my classes too. Although the students are like, what? I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's awesome. You should really go for it. So.
Well, I also, so again, with the fact, I call this the Mad Maker show, DeGroot.com, because things that the average person, and maybe not our audience, because we're all loony, but the average person out there, if they don't have a little bit of a grasp of art and the progression of the different schools of art, and at least some, they'd think that you're just stark raving mad. Right? Why? But it actually serves the function when you create something that's out of the ordinary and uncomfortable, or takes time for a person to digest in any way, and makes them think, even if there's no actual solution to their query. It's a good thing from my perspective, because it broadens the mind, allows for possibilities, and that's what I love about what you do. It broadens the mind. When you see it, I look, whatever you do, right? I think, look, a door has opened of creativity. Wow, that's an area. So, we affect people a great deal with what we do. You've done that. So anyhow, before we continue, JP, and you guys out there, if you have any questions that are
there's a few questions from out there. Before we get to them, I want to quickly run off a few lists of the people over there. Okay. Doc Jared Hildebrand over there, he just said the groovy. SDM Customs Woodworking's out there, Javi's out there, Katie Dotson's out there, Bear Attic Wood Shops out there, Dan the Maker Man, Patrick's Workshop, Bobby Duke's out there, Jim Bashir's, Jake Thompson, Harnealmedia, which is Steve Nealon. Who else is out there? Mike Atkinson. Did I say Katie Dotson? Well, she's out there as well.
She's out there twice.
Yeah, she's out there twice. So multiple accounts, that's what it is. Timber and News out there. But that's it for the time being. So let's get to some questions.
Okay.
Right, okie. Right, Bobby Duke has the first question. He says, what brand of rotary carver do you use?
For the actual carver piece with the motor and everything, I use a Fordham. It's the SR series. And the box that I got came with 2 hand pieces, which I'm really glad, because one of them just broke last night, and I'm working on finding a replacement. But while I'm waiting, I get to use my little baby one and take way too long to carve out some stuff that I need to be working on. But it's a Fordham, and I've had it for almost 3 years now, and until yesterday, it's been powering through as much as I've been needing it to. Oh, and then the burrs that I use are another thing that I really, really love, and I want to promote a little bit, is Sabertooth. And they are fantastic burrs, and they will just plow through just about any material.
Yeah, I saw you mention them the other day on your Facebook feed. They seem to be cutting through it quite easily.
Yeah, they're good. You just have to be really careful with them, because I've plowed into my hand more than once.
You got another question from Timber Anu. They want to know, what is your favourite wood or material to work with, and why?
A lot of people know this answer. I really, really enjoy walnut. One of the reasons is just it's a pleasure to work with. The grain on it is very nice. It doesn't make the tools kind of go astray really very often. I also used to have an abundance of it, so I use it a lot, just to run through my stock that I have most of. And then the third reason is that it ebonizes really well. So I make this solution, my own ebonizing solution, so fancy, just from the steel wool and vinegar, and it turns it just jet black. So I really like that.
Okay. Okay, the next question comes from Jim Bashir's. And this may need a little bit of a background story, but this one's is I've got to ask you, how bad are you going to kick Izzy's butt?
Well, I'm not going to try to make him cry, but I am hoping to come out ahead in this throwdown that he has started. So last week, it was last week Sunday, Izzy and I were talking, and it was a good conversation. Well, later that evening, he's like, "Hey, check Facebook." I'm like, "Okay." So I see that he has posted this call to action, basically, by me, and he's challenged me to a build off. We had 3 weeks to do it, and I think he's scheduling it around my Christmas break, so I'm off for another week and a half or so. And that's about as long as we have to complete this project, is the day before I go back and start teaching again. So it's the challenge is awesome. It has to be our own design, and it has to be completed within 3 weeks. So it's so open-ended, and I'm just having a blast with it. So I've been making little tiny baby call outs to like, "Hey, Izzy, you scared yet?" So I don't know. I think he is. I think he is. He's hiding it really well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And the last one for the time being is it comes from Dan the Maker Man and Bear Attic Woodshop. They want to know, what is your favourite project to date?
My favorite project to date. I don't know. Honestly, there were so many that are really good points kind of in the evolution of the series that I've been working through and this giant body of work. I think the one piece that I don't think I'll ever really get rid of, and that I think was the most influential, was that first piece that I was talking about with the timbre. Just because that it really is kind of the genesis of this body of work, and I think that without that piece, I wouldn't be where I am now. And you know, my designs change and it evolves, and I get further and further away from that piece, but I think that it made the most impact on what I do now, and I think that's probably maybe not the best design-wise, but I think it's the most important to me.
That's fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, that's it for the time being.
Okay.
So
let's go back to for a second, as far as you and your first sort of encounter with woodworking tools, and where did that all come from?
And where did it start?
Yes.
My dad's a woodworker, actually, and so I grew up around it. He was always making things. He bought. What I remember of the story is that he had a wood lathe, the wood lathe that I actually have on display in my living room now. He had a wood lathe, and he would make candlesticks, and he'd sell them at craft shows, and he'd make them out of old cedar posts, and he'd sell them for just $1 per inch in height. So he'd sell out of them like crazy. And he saved up enough with some help from my grandpa to buy the 40 acres that I grew up on. And so it's a good story, and that was before I was born. But he kept making things, and he kept turning, and he kept finding jobs that would give him the opportunity to make things. And so with me growing up around that, I was all into it. Like, I loved it. I loved watching it. I loved being in the space as much as I was probably in the way most of the time. I remember helping him clean under his table saw because he never did. And so I just remember he'd get home from work, we'd have dinner together, and then he'd go right back out to the shop, and I would be right on his heels. And when he was turning, that was when I was just mesmerized, and everything that he would do on there, it didn't make sense to me, but I loved watching it. And at a certain point, he taught us how to turn, my brothers and I, and his rule was when we were tall enough to stand on the bucket and reach the lathe, he would teach us how to turn. So that was kind of my first introduction to wood turning and woodworking on my own. And over the summer, I went to visit him in Kentucky, and he pulled out this box of honey dippers that my brothers and I had turned, and I was probably only 5 or 6 years old at that point, and we know exactly which one was mine because he could see that I had taken time on it. And my brothers, they didn't care. They just wanted to play with the tools and then go do whatever else they were doing. But I was so into it, and I loved it, and I wanted to just be this meticulous 5-year-old. So that's where it started. And over the years, I kind of fell out of it, and then once I was in college, I kind of came back into it. So there was about a 15-year gap between when I first started and then when I got back into it as an adult. But that's where it all came from, and just his influence of constantly just making and designing and just creating, I guess, has influenced me a lot. And it was, honestly, it's a whole family of makers. My mom's a maker. She did everything. And my grandma is a maker, and mostly two-dimensional, but a lot of sculpting as well. So I grew up around all of it, and I had a lot of really good influences in my life that would lead me to kind of where I am now.
Amazing.
But, yeah, I started at a very young age just making, and I couldn't stop, and drawing every chance I got. I actually got in trouble in church quite a few times because I was drawing instead of listening to what they were doing. But I was so young. I mean, I'm not going to listen to that when I'm that young. I don't comprehend it. But what I do comprehend is that drawing will keep me quiet, and it'll keep me from falling asleep. So, and I do it now too. I'm in staff meetings and I'm just drawing away, and it helps me listen, and it helps me focus, and it helps me not doze off in a staff meeting, because I think I would get in more trouble falling out of my stool than sitting there and drawing and looking like I'm not listening when I really am. But I get a lot of dirty looks from administration. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't do that, but it's whatever. I do.
Well, so you have your own process of working things out.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, also, friends and whatnot. How much did they really? How many people around you, apart from the family, were like you? Maybe did people relate to it, or no? Did you feel sort of apart with your interests? Did you try to reach out to your friends and say, "Oh, because I've got this idea and this and that"? And did they look at you like you're a kook? Did things like that occur to you ever? Yes, no, I don't know.
Well, I was homeschooled as well until 7th grade. So we went to our little homeschool gatherings, and I'm going to shut this door now because the tiny barking is driving me nuts. Hold on. Okay.
Well, that was just, they're all offended now, your little doggies. They're like, how dare she?
I know. McNeil just jumped off the bed to follow, and as soon as I went to close the door, he looks back. He's like, "What are you doing? I'm coming back." So, okay, so I was homeschooled. So we didn't have that constant connection with other people that I guess a lot of other kids in public school have. So I, for the most part, just got to do my own thing growing up until I got to 7th grade, and then 7th grade came around, and I started at a private school. And like my first day in art class, we were doing these charcoal drawings, and by the end of the class, like I'm still drawing, and we're just doing a still life. So we're drawing from observation, and it's just this giant pile of pots and pans and things, and I'm just going at it, and I get so into it that I don't realize that other students are stopping what they're doing and like coming around and like watching me draw. And at a certain point I realized what was happening. Like nobody else is in the room, like in their spots. They're all just behind me. And I'm like, okay, all right, this is kind of freaking me out. But they were just like, what, how is this even happening? How did you learn how to do this? I'm like, I don't know. I've just always done it. So, I mean, I'm not used to, or I guess I wasn't used to people being interested in the same things as me growing up, just because I was always in my own little place. Like I was always lost in my own imagination and creating these little stories and walking off into our 40 acres. Being homeschooled, we did a lot of little nature walks with my mom, and she would bring, we each had our own little sketchbook. And again, my brothers weren't really into it, but she would sit down and we'd find like a flower or a leaf or a frog or something, and we'd sit and we'd sketch whatever we saw, and then we'd come back to the house and we'd learn about whatever it was that we were actually sort of researching in a way and visually recording in our sketchbooks. And after I was, I guess, introduced to more friends and more public school kind of atmosphere, I knew that I was different. And for a while I tried to fit in and I tried to be like everybody else, and then I just got so sick of it because I don't want to be normal. I don't want to fit in. I don't want to be just like everybody else. Like, I'm my own person, and I'm perfectly fine with that. It just took me a while. It took me a while to realize that, and that it's okay to be different, and it's okay to stand out. So
that's a very good. That's an incredible story. I love how you were nurtured in that way by your folks, and those things at an early age really does. I mean, the impact is massive. In my case, I wasn't necessarily specifically. They just let me, if I wanted to explore, I'd explore. It was not. I was not hindered, and I ended up like a nutball, right? So, so I guess it works different for everybody. But so that's just an amazing thing, and not the last thing you mentioned, not wanting to fit in for the sake of fitting in, just because, you know, following your path. That's a great lesson, you know, and not a lot. It's a lesson that takes a lot for people to come to. You know, we have a given time on this planet, and we can't necessarily, actually we can't please, I'm not even going to say some people, please anybody. You can't please anybody.
right.
You got to go and follow your thing, because at the end of the day, it's like something's going to be off for other people. It's just your vision, and you're amazing. So I want to go into some other, actually there's more to talk about the furniture, because you've had exhibitions and like where it's been placed on, you know, in exhibitions. Yeah. Can you give us a little bit? And by the way, for you folks out there that we're talking about all this, she did show us a few examples with the legs, but in the link you'll find a link to Rebecca's website, her Instagram, YouTube. So check those things out to see exactly what we're seeing. I mean, it's really impressive. So do yourself a favor and check that out, because it's just mind opening, you know, in a different way. Anyways, so talk a little bit about Polymer Clay. There's so much, the earrings, there's so many things to talk about, but the turned earrings, but the Polymer Clay stuff, give us a little bit. Why, how long did you just start? Because I saw you working on some the organic stuff, and then all of a sudden you went into clay. There was a moment where something changed there and you started focusing. So just hit us with a little bit of that.
Well, over the summer, I think it was in June, this last summer, I was accepted to start selling my work, small work, kind of impulse buy, price range work at a little farmer's market in a local town nearby. And I started selling a couple of these little pieces along with my wooden earrings and different things that I sell that's a little bit higher quality. And the Polymer Clay stuff just started selling out like crazy. So that's why there was that like shift for a little while. And I'm still going to keep doing that, but it's definitely not going to be the focus, because I think I just got burnt out on it. And just earrings like crazy. For a while, it was just the little tentacles, or the kraken sightings, as I call them, and those I really enjoy, and my students love them, and they think they're just hilarious. And again, they're just kind of weird earrings and kind of wearable art. And I don't. It's been a very long time since I've worn a pair of earrings that I've bought. Like it's been forever. I think it's been over a year that I've actually worn something that I've bought and not just made. So I enjoy just kind of experimenting and making things that I would wear and that I would like and that I would like to show off. So that's part of it. And then actually going to a place where other people are interested in them too, and they buy them. And a lot of the time it's just for gifts because they think they're quirky and weird. And I'm like, okay, awesome. And every once in a while they'll sell some of my higher priced items, or I'll sell the higher priced items, and they'll be really into those. And it's usually just around Christmas time that people buy those. But yeah, that's why I had the shift, is just that I've had an opportunity to sell things and make a little bit of extra cash. But other than that, I'm getting kind of burnt out on making those things just because it's like I have to mass produce them if I want them in time for the farmer's market every Saturday. And it's getting to a point where I've been so busy trying to keep up with that I haven't had any opportunity to make my own work and the stuff that I want to make. And that was part of the conversation that I had with Izzy last week, is that just I'm so overwhelmed with everything that I'm supposed to be doing that I'm not really doing anything I want to do. So that's just one of those things that I guess I've put in my head that I'm supposed to be doing, and that I have to keep up with myself just to try to keep this under control. But I'm gonna actually try to work my way away from that for a little while, and maybe if I don't sell as much at the farmer's market, I'm fine with that, because I think I'll be happier in the long run doing what I want to be doing and making what I want to make, even if it won't sell, even if I'm just gonna maybe, like you were mentioning just a minute ago, getting it into these exhibitions. Like, I have to work to get stuff into exhibitions. It's not like people are coming to me at this point and saying like, we want your stuff. No, I have to actually like go online. I have to find shows that actually fit for me, and I have to apply, and I have to pay an application fee. So it's money out of my pocket to get my stuff into these places. It's a difficult process, but it's something I really enjoy. And it's almost always really beneficial for me because I am contacted semi-regularly by people that have seen my stuff in shows, or people that have seen my stuff online because of me promoting the shows that they're in. And they're like, well, you know, I love that. Do you have any work that's for sale? And it's a lot of the time the bigger stuff or the stuff that's in these exhibitions is out of their price range, but then they can find links to the other smaller things that I sell, which is nice.
Yeah,
So,
it's very awesome that you have that in the price range. They can still have an item, you know, up and down the price range spectrum.
mm-hmm.
So that's cool. So what would a huge table with spider legs run me?
I've put a price on the walnut piece that has 6 legs. It's about 4 feet across. I've put $2,500 on it, and
Okay.
I'm just waiting until somebody wants it. So
Very good.
when that day comes, I will be ready and happy to ship it off, because it's again sitting in my parlor with a bunch of my other stuff that I've made, and with the spider baby, and with the other piece with the timbre. That's kind of my display room. I've got everything in there, and I've got that welded table in there that's kind of this merge between like metal and wood, and they kind of come together in the middle. So it's kind of a showroom, but I enjoy having that space.
Well, you know that so the way I've mentioned it before on the show, the way I see it, all these people, like I mentioned earlier on, so this maker community of people from around the world, creating amazing things with their particular slant and touch. Who's to say, just like, I hate to say this because it sounds ridiculous, but who's to say 20, 30, 40 years from now, 50, 60, 100, those pieces, oh, this is from that era during that big explosion where people were actually filming and recording, and look, we have the documentation. Like that Antique Roadshow, you see like those 2 little old ladies, right, with blue hair and like a peacock, you know, with a drawer set, you know, in its chest, and this was given to me by my great uncle Bob, and I don't know, I think it's worth something, lady. It's worth $5 million, you know. So I totally, because we're living in a fraction of time. We are living now, and I totally see these things and people looking back and saying, oh, this is, and you know, I mean, we're all explorers to one degree. So I totally see that. So I could totally see your pieces, you know, in the future, and the person that buys it looking back, oh, I've got the DeGroot, right? I could totally see that. Great name also, by the way, right? Isn't it cool?
It is. I love it.
We've got a few more questions from outside in the in the chat.
Yes.
We've got one that's not quite maker related, but it's from Liberty Woodwork. It says, "What's your favourite part in Jurassic Park?"
Oh. I don't like the jump scares where the dinosaurs like jump out at you and make you jump. I don't like that. So I guess that's my least favorite part. But I like the original Jurassic Park and the part where the raptor is in that industrial kitchen. That's probably my favorite part. That's like playing with all the things and it looks like it's going to open the door. That part.
Okay, there's a question from Jake Thompson. He says, "What's more exciting for you, doing projects or teaching people how to do projects?"
Oh, I guess each one has their advantages. I really, really enjoy the fact of the piece and I get to finally show it off. But then when I'm showing people how to do projects, when they have that kind of aha moment and they realize sort of how these things come together and how to make it work and how to make it stand up, or when they have their finished piece and they're so excited about it that they're just taking tons of pictures and they want pictures with their work and they're like, "Come here, get a picture with me. I want to see what you've actually shown me how to do." That's probably even more rewarding than my own finished work. So I really enjoy that and I love sharing that with people. And I'm really excited about this too because I get to experience that again. I've just been asked to demonstrate at 2 more places in March for one of them and then April for the next one. So I'm excited about those. And what's even better is that they're both local, so I don't really have to travel that far.
Have any of your students ever done like a spider something or other?
They've done sketches of them. Like I've got some posters around the room with my work that I've just got printed off, and I want to see if any of my older students will figure out that that's actually my stuff. But I don't always tell my new students that I do this kind of stuff, just because a lot of the time they won't believe me. They'll think that it's just out of a magazine because I'm happy to say I take really good photographs of my work. And so they're like, "No, you just found that somewhere." I'm like, "No, that's really mine." And I'll show them my website and they'll be like, no, still no. But they've never actually made anything like that. But we also don't work with wood. I wish that we could. And sometimes my jewelry class is able to work on a smaller scale, which is the jeweler saws and cutting out shapes and putting things together like that. But I think this year I'm going to try to sneak a lathe into the classroom and see if we can turn some stuff out and see how that goes. So the most that I've seen from them with any of these legs or like creature-like attributes has been in 2-dimensional drawings. So I'm hoping that we can do more in the future.
Okay, we've got a question from Dan the Maker Man again. It says, "What medium would you like to work in that you haven't yet?"
That's really hard to say because I can't think of anything I haven't worked in. I haven't worked with a lot of leather, and I think that would be really fun to experiment with. Maybe not on its own, but a juxtaposition, maybe leather and metal, I think would be really exciting.
Fair play. And last one comes from Jim Bashir's. Says, "Were there any cartoon art pieces that inspired you for the pieces you make now?"
Cartoon art pieces? I don't know about cartoon art pieces, but there is an artist that inspired me when I was in college quite a bit. His name is Michael Hasselhock, and he's a wood turner. I don't know if you've heard of him, but his stuff is very, very playful, and it just kind of pushed me a little bit further to do what I'm enjoying and to actually have fun with my work, not be so serious about it. Because early on, I was reprimanded just a little bit for being too much of a perfectionist. Actually, all of my teachers kind of mentioned that to me, and my studio teachers, they're like, "You need to kind of relax a little bit and not be so uptight about your finished work being absolutely perfect. And I still haven't really gotten away from that. But Michael Hasselhoff and just the playful themes of his work they've always kind of been an inspiration. So I really enjoy his stuff. So maybe not cartoon artwork, but physical artwork done by a wood turner that's very cartoon-like.
Okay. Yeah, that's it for the time being, Eloy.
Okay.
Oh no, tell a lie. Chad
Okay.
from Mancrafting's got one.
Right
He says,
on.
what made you choose spiders or bugs as a design element?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think they've got the most interesting legs. I can be really playful with them. They don't have to really look like an actual animal leg, but when you put them all together, it looks like it resembles certain animals without looking exactly like them. Like, I've got more examples of things that don't look anything like real creature legs, but still, once they're together, like I've got this one. It's just this kind of S-shaped leg. And then I've got this other one, which again, they're not really spider or crab-like, but when I put 4 or 6 or even 3 of them together, people associate them with that kind of creature just because they've either got these interesting curves that are similar to those creatures, or they've got these angular segments that just remind people of those animals. So not necessarily copying what's already in nature, but just using it as a reference, I think is really fun. And I just enjoy it. And I like the design, and it just works well for kind of what I'm going for.
Very cool.
Very cool. Yeah, well, that's it for the time being.
Oh, I heard my echo.
You did.
So before we continue, I want to mention to everyone out there that we are going to be, after the show, going over to JP's channel, JP, and there's my echo, very psychedelic. And we're gonna do a year-end. I can't concentrate when I hear my own voice coming back at me, man. We're gonna do a year-end wrap-up and just hang out with everybody. So, JP, where are you gonna leave that link?
I've actually set it up yet. So give it, say, 10 minutes or so after this show ends, and then the link will go live.
Okay.
And it's open to anyone. So.
And you're gonna share it where?
I'll put it on my Facebook page or wherever. If you turn up in the chat, then if you want the link,
yeah, that if I were like totally on a trip, I'd understand that. But with the echo, are you guys hearing the same echo I am, or is it just me?
I'm hearing it.
I'm not.
You're not hearing the echo?
Nope.
I hope it's not coming from mine.
No, I can hear it.
You can hear it? Okay, so it's not just my imagination?
Imagination.
So Rebecca.
There's also going to be a gift as well.
Oh boy, that's just. Can you mute yourself for 1 second? Let me see. Do I hear the echo?
No.
No. Okay, Rebecca, you're the culprit. Unclick it and say something.
Is it me?
Yes.
Oh
no. So the psychedelicness is coming from you.
Sorry.
So you do a lot of live shows or lives on Facebook and demonstrate your work as well, the process and all that. And a lot of people, when they see, I mean, they're inspired. Do you consider that just teaching or just a hangout type deal or what?
I kind of try to have fun and sort of make it both. If you watch any of my lives, like I try to throw as many tips in there as I can and try to show kind of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. Just even so that the people that are watching, if they do try it, they can avoid some mistakes that I might have made in the past. Like one of the tips that I threw in, I think it was yesterday when I was doing the power carving, is that I flip my motor in reverse and I run the tool in reverse so that I can push the carver away from myself. I don't actually have to pull it toward me, just because I feel like it's a little bit safer to push away from your exposed hand, especially if you don't have it in a clamp or anything. So just little things like that. I like to share any little tips or little bits of knowledge that I might have come up with or found throughout the years of trying this stuff, that anything that can be helpful. So I like to make it more of a teaching thing, but honestly, I really like to do it live because I can answer as many questions as possible and just hang out. And it's a lot less boring if I'm actually communicating with people and trying to talk to people than just hanging out alone in my shop.
So oh, there's my, could you mute while I ask, and then we'll do the, so the process that you go through drafting and drawing, how have you ever, because I've noticed you will sketch something, you'll work out a sketch, and then from there you'll implement the process in the real world. Have you ever willy-nilly, no plans, no sketch, just straight to the lathe and whatnot?
Yeah, I do on a semi-regular basis, just go to the lathe and make something and then see what I can make out of it. Honestly, the piece that I made for Ruff's Clarity, when I started that one piece, it was just a piece that I finished a couple months ago too. That one, I just went to the lathe and I started to make a body of a piece, just to see sort of what I could do with that body, what legs I could add to it if I wanted to add anything else to it. And the original idea that I had in my mind after I made the body wasn't exactly what it ended up being. And I guess I always have an idea in my mind of what I sort of want to have. Now we've got fireworks, so I typically have an idea in my head of some of the things that I might want, not necessarily what I'm making currently. So I could have 4 or 5 things going on in my head that the object that I'm making could end up as. But then during the process, I might find that I get a catch, or I find a knot that doesn't really work very well with what I'm trying to do. And the design sort of morphs mid-process. So that project, honestly, something that's designed like that, sometimes is a lot more fun, just because it is more of an experiment and it's a discovery of what this piece is going to be. So it's kind of the material telling me what to do instead of me saying that you are going to do this thing and this is exactly how you're going to look. So it's a little bit of both. And either way, I think I enjoy both processes, although the way my mind works, I like to have a plan, but sometimes they just don't work. And I try to work with them the best that I can.
Well, the ability to draw. Could you mute the thing? Because I'm hearing myself say it twice. The ability to, this is what I'm hearing. If you're not hearing it, I say the ability to draw, and then I say it to myself again. The ability to draw. The ability. It's quite disturbing. The echo.
People's hearing voices.
Maybe that's it. This is the culminate. This is it. We've gone. It totally is. The ability to draw, obviously is a complete positive, because it adds to the process where you can sketch something out and make it detailed as you want. I mean, that's just a given. A lot of people don't have that ability. But you mentioned meticulous, and you sort of keep at it. You don't want to let a thing go until it's the way it should be in your mind. And you said that you were being pushed by teachers to sort of, slapped in the hand a little and said, no, let it go. Why would they say, let it go? I mean, I have my own thoughts on that, but why would they say, okay, leave well enough alone. You're good. The project's done. But you want to continue, tweaking and whatnot. Why would they tell you that? What was the reason behind that?
I think most of it was because I was spending so much time trying to make the actual object perfect and not focusing as much on the concept or the idea behind it. And a lot of what we learned in college is that not everything has to be perfect, but if you present your idea in such a way that other people understand it, or it evokes an emotion or a feeling or more thoughts from seeing this object, that's where it's successful. Not necessarily making the best finish or sanding it to the highest polish or anything like that, which is a lot of what I'm focused on, is like making these things look like they are so incredibly refined that most people don't get to that point, I guess. And then sometimes the idea behind the piece is lost because I'm spending so much time focusing on just the finish of it. But I think
the idea is lost on your journey to it, because
I think
it's not.
so. I think so. Just because a lot of the work that we were doing, the assignments, some of them were more conceptual than actual construction. And I think because I was focusing more on the construction of the piece and the execution of the physical object, that the idea ended up being lost in my journey toward perfection. So, and then a lot of it started in painting class, honestly, is that I couldn't loosen up, so everything was so structured that it almost looked digital or looked like something that was printed. And so that ended up being kind of a problem. And so it helped in some ways. We had these notebooks in our color theory class that had to be done, and we only had enough pages in our watercolor notebook to finish this thing. And because I am so nice, some people, two of them actually, screwed up two of their pages and they were freaking out. And so it was like, before I realized that we only had enough pages to fill everything that we needed to do, I gave them an extra page out of my notebook. And then I realized at the end of class, or like right toward the end of the year, that I didn't have enough pages in my notebook now that I've given two of mine away. And so I had to really meticulously fit about 3 or 4 pages worth of work onto my last 2 pages. And because of that, and because it was so structured, and because everything previously had been done so, I guess, exactly, the teacher looks at my book at the end of the year and she's like, "Rebecca, this is ridiculous." And I thought that I was in trouble. And she's like, "Can I borrow this for a couple semesters to use as our example? Because this is better than the example that we're working from as a class. Can I just like photocopy these? Because I don't even know how you did this. This is ridiculous." And so I was like, okay, that's fine, as long as I'm not in trouble for it. But that's one of the teachers that she was trying to encourage me to do more abstract work, just because everything was just so boxed in that it wasn't letting me really express anything. It was just keeping to the guidelines and putting everything inside a box that it didn't really need to be in. And for quite a while, that's where I was. And I've finally started to work out of that. But I still have that problem of trying to finish things in a reasonable amount of time and a reasonable amount of effort too, is that after I get to a certain point, I could be done and most people won't see the flaws, but I don't want to see them. And I don't want to know that they're there, and it's just going to bother me until they're gone. So I'll just keep working toward perfection, even though it's never going to get there. And I know that. And at a certain point, I have to tell myself to stop, but I really do have to tell myself to stop.
Wow.
So,
all right.
I don't know, it's kind of intense, always.
JP, any other questions?
Not for the time being, but out in the chat we have Katie Dotson, Be Happy Woodworking and Honeybees, Ragtie, Mark Lindsay CNC, Jim Bashir's, Bales is out there, Man Crafting, Liberty Woodworking, Javi's out there. Let's keep on scrolling up. Jake Thompson, Harnealmedia, Muddy Fences is out there. And Mike Atkinson. And I'm just Dan the Maker Man, and I'm just scrolling now. So
right.
yeah, All right.
All right. So, Rebecca, let me ask you, did you enjoy yourself? You're muted.
I forgot that I was muted. No, this is fantastic. Thank you guys for having me.
So you had fun?
I did.
Would you come back again?
I would love to come back again if you guys will have me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any people that you'd like to? Well, first off, where people can find you, although I do have it in the description below, links to where they can see your work. For the folks that have not seen this, they should check out, all your builds, your projects, your pieces, sculptures. It's just inspiring, and it'll set your mind, it'll open a few doors. But can you give them that information, and if there's any shout outs or anything you'd like to say?
Well, you can find me on Facebook. That's pretty much where I'm most active. If you just look up Rebecca DeGroot. I'm on Instagram. I think it's Rebecca _ DeGroot. I'm on videos in several months, but I'm going to try to get back to that now that I've got my DSLR working.
Say that again one more time, the _ DeGroot. Say it, because the transmission lagged.
I think my Instagram is Rebecca _ DeGroot. I think. I'm pretty sure. And then I'm on YouTube as well, and my website is RebeccaDeGroot.com. So you can find me on any of those places. And then as for shout outs, if my parents do end up watching this, because I've told both of them about it, I'd like to shout out to them just for being so supportive of everything that I've always done, and my grandma as well. They've all been wonderful, and they've been such a fantastic support group for me my entire life, and just I'm so appreciative that they've been there for me, and they've inspired me, and they've encouraged me to do what I actually enjoy, not just what the world thinks that I should be doing. And then the last one is Izzy, I'm gonna kick your butt, so you better watch out. We've got about a week and a half left, right? Yeah, so you're going down.
All right.
A few people in the chat said that Izzy deserves to cry on this challenge, so make it happen.
JP, any final thoughts?
Yeah, personally, I wouldn't like to see Izzy cry, but he did make me fall off of his cart at the outside of his house when I went to see him, so make it happen.
All right.
Any final thoughts? Just the fact that that's my logo. No, that's my logo. That's a podcast logo. That's Harnealmedia. I'm Jamie.
All right, so guys, everybody out there, I want to thank you very much for coming over and hanging out with us. And throughout the year, all you good people that I've met have really impacted my life in an incredible way. Just knowing so many people with creativity and inspiration, and just the attitude of, yeah, let's do this, let's make this. I mean, I just received I'll show you, from Dan the Maker Man. Let me go into the darkness and bring it out. From Dan the Maker Man, I just received his Bad to the Bone letter opener, Lord of the Rings style, handcrafted by Dan the Maker Man. Just people with astonishing talents. Very fortunate, I feel, to be able to interview makers like DeGroot, Bobby Duke, Adam McMillan, Chad from Mancrafting, Matt Haas, all these people that we've interviewed, Dan the Maker Man himself, Amy Bitters, Ryan Bitters from Waylight Creations. We also interviewed
Makers Wanted as well. Can't forget that.
Well, Makers Wanted. Well, I'm just saying from my perspective in the show. Makers Wanted. That's right. I thought you were talking about
the thing that you lose sleep so much about.
Well, no. Here's the thing.
If I tell you not to talk about it, you'll talk about it.
No, because everything, right? Everything has maker attached to it. So it's Makers Wanted, Makers this, Makers that, Makers Maker. So at one point, it all becomes a big glob. And why'd you have to ruin it for me, JP? What a way to end the year. But long story short, thank you guys, all of you guys. You're all incredible people. Very strange people.
Before you do sign off, there's someone called Robin Ward that says Mum says hi. I'm presuming it's a relative, Rebecca. You're muted. You're muted.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah.
Hey, Mom.
It sounds weird when I say Mom.
Mom.
Hey, Mom.
Mom.
Hey, Mom.
Hey, Mom. See, that just sounds posh.
So all of you guys out there, JP's gonna somehow magically provide you a link. Go to JP. What we're gonna do is we're gonna open up a panel, and we're gonna do a end of year wrap up with whoever comes. It's open, as JP said, open to whoever wants to jump in.
If I put a link to my channel into the
do what you want. Yeah, do it, man. Hey, dude, come on. You know, I almost forgot to mention Miter Mike.
My channel link should be in the description anyway, shouldn't it? As co-host.
Your channel is in the description. Man, we get so much stuff from the British. My goodness. I mean, what did I do to deserve this? I mean, all your info's there. Rebecca's stuff is there. I mean, what else you want, dude?
You beat us in a war a few years ago.
We didn't beat you in no. When was that? A few years ago? That was a long time ago.
Yeah, well, I still haven't forgotten about it.
And look at the mess we're in now, man. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for coming out. We'll catch you next year. I think what we're gonna do is that we'll be off the first of the year, or the first. I think it's gonna be the second. Let me see. Let me check real quick here. So yeah, so Tuesday the 2nd, Nomad Maker Show. Okay, and then we'll be back the following week. So, guys, take care. Rebecca, thank you so much. JP, peace. Love you all.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.